One of my friends told me, if you're going to fail, fail quickly. Don't sit there for 5, 10 years failing slowly and then your life passes by. So that hit me. There's a thin line between what's right and wrong when you say fail. But the benefit is it's true. You learn so much. And after 2 decades of failing a lot of things, and a couple of things went well, but the more you fail, the more you grow.
Can peak success leave you empty and take 12 years to discover what truly matters? Howard Quigley Chang designed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, walked away at the height, and now creates Ancientz, biblical heroes reimagined as futuristic warriors for the next generation. We'll explore creativity and calling, building a business rooted in faith, and why culture needs conviction over compromise, grounded in purpose, creativity, and faith. Howard, welcome to Seek Go Create.
Hey, thanks for having me out.
Great to have you too. I'll go ahead and set the stage. You and I are recording this on a Saturday morning. I'm on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast, and nothing that I'd rather be doing than having a conversation like this. I tell you what, I think we're going to have fun.
Yeah.
I've been looking at your name as I've been doing research and all this, and we've got Howard, kind of a, I don't know, Anglo-Saxon type name, Quigley, nickname Australian-ish sounding.
Saw that movie, Quigley Down Under.
Yeah, and then Chang, which is obviously Asian, background. I mean, there's a lot of culture coming together in that name. Give me a little origin story or something just to just to give me some background there.
Well, I'm multicultural in many different ways. Born in Korea, I came when I was 6 years old. So I can say I'm purely American. Went through the whole kindergarten system. So I'm here, and my name was Howard Chang since I was a kid. I grew up with that, and then my first job, which is what led me to designing Ninja Turtle toys for almost a decade. I just went. It was supposed to be a summer job before I started college, and my old bosses, who I still hang out with, I still talk to them after 35 years, 36 years. They didn't like the fact that I was going to quit to go to college, and they really wanted me to stay, and they were upset about it. And they told me, "You don't quit, we fire you." Howard, your fire didn't sound good. So the next day, he came back after watching the Jetsons and saw a character named Quigley being fired. He came over and said, "Your name's Quigley because I fired you." So it stuck for 36, 37 years.
That's funny how nicknames
But
do that because I mean, I don't this sounds judgy. You don't really look like a Quigley. I don't know what a Quigley should look like, right?
I don't look like Tom Selleck in an Australian movie.
No, man, that didn't come across right. No, you look a lot like Tom Selleck. No, I also want I want to say this too. We have a lot of audio listeners, but we also have even more growing over on the YouTube channel. So if you are an audio listener, this might be an episode where you want to jump over to YouTube because over Howard's right shoulder is a big poster of a Ninja Turtle there, and then also a lot of other uh, things that we're going to be talking about soon. So I'm just going to say that as we get started, and we'll possibly come back to that later. But Howard, I got to say, I said this right before we hit record. We came up with this name Seek Go Create years ago. It was 3 words that I believe the Lord gave me in a very tough time in my life, and they have a lot of meaning. Obviously, they have scriptural reference and things like that. But I told you this, there may not be anyone that exemplifies or whatever is like a model for those 3 words than your life. Seek, go, and create. When I say that, what comes to your mind? Do you agree with that?
Well, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm seeking, I'm creating, I'm going. I don't know where I'm going, but I know I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I am, and I'm going to keep doing it.
So the reason I bring it up and the reason that became important for me is I used to be like a go and then figure things out along the way. And the Lord kind of told me, no, I need you to pause and spend some quiet time. It sounds like a lot of your creativity, a lot of your ideas. I know we'll talk later about Ancientz, where it came from dreams, but let's even go back to the days when you were starting and you were in that hot commodity of the Ninja Turtles. How important was for you to pause before you began, or were you just like a just go and start creating guy?
Growing up, I guess, throughout my youth and childhood, I was always the best artist in class. And people would ask me to draw things, and I was always win the competitions. And even during college, I was kind of teaching the teacher how to do certain things. So it just came natural to me. Everyone used to always say, God gave you a gift. Back then, I didn't know what that meant, but I just took it, right? So when I got into the job, like I said, right after high school, it was a summer job. When I went in, I just started going at it. I didn't know what I was creating because the Ninja Turtle toys came out the year, like less than a year before I started drawing for them. It came out in 1988, and in 1999, I was already on the team designing turtles for a company called Varnish Studios, which was a contract company doing the toy designs. And, I had a lot of fun, and you can tell in other podcasts about the turtles, people are always commenting about all the little details. No two legs look the same. No two arms look the same. They had something on there that looked different. And what we realized decades later was that the Ninja Turtle franchise was one of the most popular toy lines in history. And I kind of left the whole design art creative scene. I got burnt out literally after 8 years of doing it. And I took a whole, you know, different sabbatical doing business apps and running manufacturing, things like that. But when I came back and visited Comic Con after a long absence, man, there were fans who were in their 40s still wearing the turtle shirts. And what I realized was the nostalgia, that the whole fan base, what you see today, are people who grew up with these toys and they can never let it go, or they still have their collection. And, there are certain fans out there who love things, and there are fans that are out there who love things. And the people who really love things know the details of everything, who created it, who designed it, what year was it manufactured, what year was it released. They know all the details, and those are the fans that are at Comic Con. And when you go to Comic Con, it's not a show that you can pay that day and walk in. It's like $400 to get a ticket. These are some serious people and it's always packed, it's sold out. It's incredible. The San Diego Comic Con, at least. That's the giant original one. To meet all these people, and what I realized was, y- we'll get to it later, the timing of everything. I grew up with Star Wars toys. Star Wars made from Kenner, and the toys were just a part of the franchise, but the main thing was the movies, right? Ninja Turtles, Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird from Maine, they made a bunch of comic books that did well in their region. And it was a pretty much a big gamble by Playmates Toys to come up with this. And then it still is widely successful, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the toy lines where I feel the toys made the IP, beyond the story and everything else, the imagination. And the timing again, what I realized today, there is so many people out there suffering from, just mental illness, mental stress. Back then, when I was designing turtles, the word depression didn't really exist. There was no such thing as ADHD. Like when people have ADHD, but back then they call them stupid, right? And then depression, you're sad, you can't get over it. But the whole mental health issue today, I feel like people are more in tune with it. I was bullied a lot as an Asian American living in America, and I was the only Asian in my school. So I understand it, but you deal with it, you get through it, right? And then times change. But if you look at today, how the world is, and people, I meet them at Comic Con, everywhere else, it's tough, with the whole polarization of America, the people just fighting and they hate each other for what they believe is right or wrong. And the people, when they look back, one thing that gave them happiness Was the Ninja Turtles, was the toys, that's the nostalgia. They wanna go back to that time when they were happy, nothing mattered. Politics didn't matter. Relationships didn't matter. All you cared about is having that Ninja Turtle, the Donatello in your hand. And I feel like this is one time in history where people do suffer a lot. They go through a lot of confusion and depression. And when they hold a toy, it brings them back to their happy times.
It is fascinating, the nostalgia part of it. I was about to come out of Georgia Tech in that time frame, starting my work, and so I didn't have a real awareness of, the Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles, and then our kids weren't born until a few years later, so we kinda missed that gap, but, I mean, I was aware of them, and from a cultural standpoint, they were big. Did you have an awareness looking back at how big it was? And you just mentioned how big it obviously still is for people. But
Yeah.
I mean, when you're in those bubbles, I think sometimes we can think it's bigger than it is. What was your perspective as you were in the midst of it?
Well, there's a lot of different toy lines out there. There's Barbie, G.I. Joe, the Star Wars toys, but Turtles were a little different, where there's always a limit of how many characters there are in the Star Wars movie. You can only do that. You can't make things up. I don't know any other toy lines besides maybe the Hot Wheels toys when they're coming out with crazy looking cars and everything. But when I first started drawing the turtles, there was only four main turtles out there, right? The four characters and some villains. But there was a time like, okay, how much of a job do I have? Once I'm done with these toys, there's got to be a limit. But there was no limit. But I realized that it was doing well. You just base it on how well it's selling, right? But it would sell out right away. So that, you know, most times in business, client will send you something. Hey, we need this design. We need a fireman turtle. We need that. But it was moving so fast that I didn't have enough time in a day to design as many different off takes as I could. It got to a point where, hey, you know what? Just design whatever you want. Right? And just make it up. So I used to come into work thinking, well, what should I do today? Maybe a Navy SEAL turtle. Do we need a basketball turtle? We need we just, how, again, this goes with your show, create, right? This is the epitome of creativity. You come in, you have a job where you can come and design and come up with anything you want to come up. And as a team at Varner Studios, we used to have fun with it, come out with things that they would never create, right? With it. So there's a lot of designs that were never created, but the nerd turtle had a little calculator, shield, a pencil, and crazy looking glasses and everything. We used to come up with Buddy Holly turtle and all kinds of stuff.
It's so interesting because we're going to talk about this a little while when we talk about your project you're working on now with Ancientz. But it is interesting how the toys, figures, whatever, plus the story, plus the other mediums, graphic novels or comics or movies and all of that. It is interesting how some of that all fits together. And sometimes it's lightning in a bottle. Sometimes there's intentionality behind it. Sometimes you look back and you just don't know. What is something now that you've gotten, 20, 30 plus years looking back on it? What is it that you look back and go, that's one of the reasons why it worked so well?
And it's hard to say.
Luck? Was it luck? I mean,
Well,
sometimes that's the factor, but
like they say, you put a lot of work and the amount of grit you put into a project or anything, the luckier you get, right? I mean, you're positioning yourself to be lucky. I mean, you had all the places in the right place, things in the right place. People needed something. And this is, again, part of what I'm doing today. The hardest thing today in pop culture is to come up with something new and make it as big as the Turtles became. But I mean, if it was that easy, there would be so many IPs out there, you can't even find them, right? But
right.
yeah, it's one of those phenomenons people say.
Well, Well, and a lot of it's timing and different things like that. Another thing, Howard, that's fascinating to me, and being kind of more business engineering minded, I'm always aware of this. We talked before we hit record just about artists and how to define that and what that means. One of the things that's interesting to me is that there are a lot of people that would call themselves artists that struggle. I hate to use the word monetize, but just to make money off of it. And it sounds as if you did that from day one. I mean, almost day one. You may not have a lot of understanding of someone who's been, we'll call it toiling for years in some type of arts field, and it hasn't been commercialized. I mean, you would show up at work and there was such an insatiable demand for what you were creating, you couldn't even keep up. Where most artists, it's a flip. They are creating so much stuff and they can barely get anyone interested in it. What comes to mind?
I mean, we had a marketplace that was just on fire, right? I mean, art is so what you meant was art is so subjective. I now consider myself again as an artist, but I was also like you, went into business, manufacturing. I was actually a computer programmer for like 6, 7 years, Microsoft SQL. So I, one of those FOMO guys that tried everything, right? But since I've done everything and I was a Ninja Turtle artist and all that, I think I experienced a lot. I really feel like even coding is an art form. Like two people can do it so many different ways. What you're doing here, this podcast is an art form. It's an expression, right? So yeah, I mean, I look back at what art really is. I mean, some people might think this is too crazy to be considered art, but it's my way of having fun, mixing two different things together and making it into something that I feel like it's appealing. And I have a bunch more. I don't know if you've seen these. I want to show it to you. My house is kind of messy, but
I wanted to, what you just pointed to, I want to say what that was. You had one of the turtles with a cross around his neck with also the parental advisory explicit content behind him.
that is
Uh,
that is
that's the humor, right?
the homage to Tupac and Leonardo the turtle. It's
Oh, okay. I get it. See, sometimes pop culture, I may not get all that, but yeah, that's fascinating.
that's
See,
what
people are really going to be wishing they could get the visuals if they're listening to this. But yeah, that I see that.
this whole I'm still keeping that turtle side of me going because the turtles are how to describe them is they're funny and they're goofy and they're ridiculous. And I feel like I have a lot of that in me, which allowed me to have a lot of fun doing these turtles. I'm pretty, you know, wacky and ridiculous
Well, the
in
thing
person.
that's interesting is that, there are oxymorons in our lives. We all have heard the joke jumbo shrimp and, different things like that. Social security, I think that's oxymoron too. But teenage ninja mutant,
Well, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
teenage mutant. See, I don't even get it. Turtles. I mean, turtles just kind of doesn't fit with some of that. And the fact that it does just speaks to, you're talking about mental health and all earlier. It speaks to someone that doesn't conform. They're different. There's just within that body, there's just a bunch of different stuff going on. And maybe that was part of the appeal. I don't know. We're not sitting here trying to, psychoanalyze the
Well, it was
success.
the creators who were just goofing around and they wanted
Yeah,
cars and it just came to that. You want to make them teenagers, make them ninjas, make them turtles. And look what happened.
very relatable. All right. So you mentioned you did that for 8 years. And now the project you're working on has a faith component. We'll get to that, but I'm kind of building to it. Did you have a faith aspect of your life while you were in this hot, expanding, coolest stuff going on with the turtles? Or was there not much of a faith component? How would you describe your faith walk during that time?
Pretty lukewarm, close to none.
Boy,
Life I lived as we I didn't grow up in a household that prayed or did anything like that.
mm,
But being immigrants from Korea, my parents, their social um group were always in churches. So I was in and around churches. So I knew, and when you're in and around churches as a kid, you go to Bible study, you go to Sunday school. So we know all the stories and you get fascinated by the stories, right? Not about the faith itself, but you're just, wow, the David and Goliath story. That's incredible. The Joseph story. Moses did that. So I grew up just being fascinated with these stories, not really connecting them to how God was working in them, or because everybody loves the underdog story. That's life itself. Like, when a losing team supposed to be they're supposed to lose, they come back and win. People love that. And that's what I was drawn to the Bible. That's how I saw it. I like the miracles, I like the challenges, but I never really knew how to pray or felt any faith growing up. And, what lead to that came to me about 12, 13 years ago.
Mm.
Powerful.
So I don't like the term serial entrepreneur,
Oh, well, I kind of am.
but yet many of us have it. Sometimes I will joke. I said that just means we couldn't find anything we're good at, or we got bored, or we failed quickly, or something. I mean, there's a lot of things that I could tie in there, but I want to get to the discussion of the dream you had, and you got this idea to create what you're creating now and tie in the spiritual aspect of it. But before we do that, was there anything in that time frame from 12, 13 years ago, which sounds like it was around 2015, 17, to the late 90s when you left what you were doing with the Turtles? Um, just a point or two that impacted you, that you brought into maybe some of the projects you're working on now? Something that you said, I'm never going to do that again, or something that you said, this is something I need to carry with me as I continue my journey in life?
That's a hard question. It's,
Yeah.
to put it in a nutshell, what you said, I was a serial entrepreneur. I mean, there were maybe a couple that were pretty successful that allowed me to do that. I was a fashion manufacturing company. I've done multiple apps. Still do run a marketing company in digital marketing. That's what kind of keeps me afloat. We're not making too much money yet, but we're hoping it will. You name it, I've been into all these different industries and fail quickly. One of my friends told me, if you're gonna fail, fail quickly. Don't sit there for 5, 10 years failing slowly and then your life passes by. So that hit me. It could have been the wrong way because as soon as I see something not working, I just quickly say, let's go on to the next. There's a thin line between what's right and wrong when you say fail. But yeah, but the benefit is it's true. You learn so much. And after 2 decades of failing a lot of things, and a couple of things went well, but the more you fail, the more you grow, I guess. So I feel like, you know, God put me into those situations. I look back in retrospect and I look at it and I go, God put me there for a reason. I got this out of that experience. I got this. And it all came in perfectly for today. Even my whole journey with the Ninja Turtles came in perfectly. And this was what was supposed to happen. And it's kind of phenomenal to see it.
Yeah. So if someone asks you what you do, what do you describe yourself? You mentioned artist earlier. Would you consider yourself an artist, business guy, or what? If someone says, "Hey, Howard, what do you do?" What's your answer if they don't know you?
Well, that was like the first question you asked. Were you Anglo-Saxon? Are you Asian or
That was your origin, not what you
European or
do. That was
like
like your.
I'm a confusing uh like you said, jumbo shrimp. So yeah, I consider myself an artist at heart because I love to create. I love it when I create something and this what I call art. I love to see people how they react to it. I love creating things, and that's at heart. But then I also love the whole aspect of business. We're out there raising money right now and putting the deck together and trying to get our funding and all that. I love the whole process. I love life. I love everything that God has to offer or gave us to experience. So yeah, core artist, but I also love business.
That's good. All right. So 12, 13 years ago is the story I've heard. You probably had stuff going on, business, but it sounds like you went through somewhat of a, I don't want to call it an epiphany or something in life that caused your faith to grow, and there were things going on, and it all, if I heard it correctly, kind of came together in a short period of time. Tell me about that, and then maybe we'll get to the dream that led to your current project because it was all sort of related, if I'm hearing correctly.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that of suffering. I think we all grow through suffering. I'm a father. I have 3 kids, and a lot of times you wanna make sure they don't suffer. They don't hit lows, but the lows are the times when I feel like they grow, they mature. I think it was 2012, I hit a low in my life. That's pretty much the lowest point where I was going through a divorce. After 10 years of marriage, we had 3 little ones, youngest one being 4, 6, and 9. It was a tough season for me. And, from a worldly standpoint, I just tell people, hey, it's over, man. I mean, a lot of people get divorced. It's fine. But it took a big toll on my body. And if you saw me back then, you can tell my hair was in different places. I was losing weight, but heavy in certain places. My friends who see me, they know there's something's wrong. And a friend of mine came, and I was having a cigarette outside, and then he looked at me and just like, Howard, I don't know where he goes, this is too big for you. I think you should let it go and give it to God, right? And I didn't know what that meant. Like, what are you talking about? You're talking nonsense here. But when he said those words, this whole like weight just it's hard to explain how certain words they can either destroy you or build you, right? But what he said didn't make sense to me, but those words just relieved me from stress. And I was seeing psychiatrists, I was seeing a therapist, I was getting anti-depression medicine, anti-anxiety, and all that. And suddenly, with those words, I didn't need it anymore. And so I looked it up. Google search was around back then. I'm like Google searching, what's happening here? And then a friend of mine, I was on Facebook, and she's asking how I'm doing. Yeah, it's going good. By the way, I'm just getting a divorce. And she called me up and invited me to her church. It's funny how God works, but he orchestrated all that. It's perfect. He needed me to be at like, I thought this was low. No, you got to go lower. And then when it hits that point, like literally the bomb explodes, and then suddenly he picks me up, and it's almost like it's not as extreme, but it felt like I was Job. Like I want to give up. Yeah. From that point, I really just said, "Hey, for first time ever, I just open up my heart, my life, and see what God can do. Right? Let's join this. I'll listen to what the leaders are saying. They told me to come to church every Sunday. That's number one. Ready? Number two, read every day. Number two, pray every day. Read and pray every day. Three was join a life group. And it was a church that says if you don't do all that, you can't be a serious member here. Please don't come here anymore. Go to some other church that you can do whatever you want. Right? So I took it seriously, and man, in a short span of time, literally, I want to say 2, 3 months, my life changed. Where I never believed in the power of prayer, never believed in scripture. But my dad knows me. I have a history of alcohol problems and in and out of things. So my father, knowing what's going on, he was at home. I came back. Him knowing what I'm capable of, looked at me and he was confused. He goes, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? You look so good." I'm like, "What do you mean?" So I go up and look in the mirror, and man, I was gleaming. I was glowing. I realized what it was. It was, I felt the Holy Spirit was really transforming me. I've never felt that. I didn't realize what was happening. And that was the point in 2012. end of 2012, right before my ex-wife left and we split up, that I realized those things really is life changing. It transforms you. And yeah, I've been pretty deep into it since. It's like my drug. I feel like I'm hoping for it. I've experienced so many miracles, and that's another podcast about all the miracles I went through. And yeah, it's just I'm living it. And
So
yeah,
the thing that's fascinating, this if there was a recurring theme, Howard, that we have in 340 episodes, whatever, it is something like what you just described. It's a low of low. That's my story too. Unfortunately, we humans, people, men, women of faith, typically don't make those kind of changes, unfortunately, when things are going great. That bothers me, but yet that's just the way it is, isn't it?
I was just really. It's funny you say that. I was just thinking about that yesterday. Um, I'm not blaming anybody or whatever, but we all have friends in life, right? And they're great friends when things are going great, right? And when things are going bad, when you need them desperately, are they there? Do we need to? Are you only here when things are going great? Would you only invest in me if things are happening? Or would you believe in me when I need you the most? I looked at the list of people, the vast amount of friends that I have, and I love all of them. They're great people. That's why they're called friends in my life. But there's only a tiny few that you can say are actually there when you're suffering. It doesn't come close to what God does. Is that the only time that you call out to God right? When you need something? Why can't we just, in our successes and our highs, celebrate with them too? Right?
Let's take a quick break from the show. I've got a question for you. Are you looking for your next great read? Something that pulls you in, makes you think, and maybe even shifts the way you see the world? If so, I want to invite you into the story of Coach, a story of success redefined. It's the journey of Cooper Travis, a man who seems to have it all: money, influence, the fast-paced life. But despite everything, he's still chasing something more. Sound familiar? Coach is a powerful fiction story that challenges the conventional definition of success and offers something deeper, something eternal. Grab your copy today wherever books are sold or visit timwinders.com/books. It's a read you won't forget. All right, back to the show. I think it's why Jesus said it's harder for a rich man to get to heaven or to have salvation and all. But you brought up Job, and it's fascinating. This is what came to me when you brought up Job. I'm going, yeah, that's the story that we keep hearing over and over again. And I've often wondered, why is Job in the canon of the Bible? Why is it included? And it's probably for that reason. It's all of our stories.
Yeah.
And it's the message of you need God, period. I mean,
Hey, you think you have it bad?
so anyways, we could go down that road, but I want to talk about this project because at some point during that time, you obviously were on a faith journey where you were stepping into his kingdom and allowing him to be your king. That's the way I refer to it. Instead of he's just another part of what we have going on in our lives. You know, he's the king and we're stepping into his kingdom. So somewhere along the way, you got this idea for this big project. And I'd like for us to take the next 20 plus minutes and talk about this project. So give me the impetus or the catalyst of this, and then let's start having fun with all these new things you've got working on.
Yeah. Well, I told you what happened 12 years ago. So during that time of, I guess that's my transformative years, I guess, spiritually. I was really on that high, and it was right around Christmas. I was thinking to myself, hey, what can I get my kids that kind of shows them what I'm going through and something maybe pointing towards the Bible. And I was looking around and I couldn't find anything, man. Like it's hard to see anything that's popular in pop culture or even like even back then, you listen to Christian music and you listen to it, kids be like, "Oh my gosh, why you listen to that?" Right? So it was everything dealing with by the Bible, the church seemed like it was 100 years old, right? It's nothing cool about faith. And it bothered me a little bit. And so I'm thinking, okay, how come we can't come up with something that is as cool and people would just want it? And so when I was looking at Google search, the only toy that I found was David and Goliath. They're wearing their loincloth and they're throwing a stone. I would guarantee if I bought that for my kids, they would disown me and they would want to live with their mom forever. So my idea was, what can I come up with? And it was during a time of prayer and meditation that I was seeing things in my head and it looked a little like the characters that I created for Ancientz, which we'll get to. But I was trying to make sense of it. And then I remembered, hey, I was a toy maker for a pretty popular toy line. That started the whole process, I guess, and gave me the ideas and a direction that I wanted to do. But the biggest point was to make toys, you gotta have $1 billion, and that's not gonna guarantee you success. You're dealing with toy companies out there that have deep pockets, that have manufacturing, that have supply chain and everything ready to go. And then I remember what the pastor told me, and I was again very new in my faith, right? He says, you know, everything goes to God's glory. So if I came out with something that I could manage, that I think I can achieve, then it's not God sized. Do something that's impossible. You know, you can't do, but you can only achieve it if God's involved. So this seemed perfect. I mean, I can't do this on my own. I don't have that kind of money to get out there and compete against Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, and Transformers. So that yeah, that was confirmation for me. You know, I'm gonna go for it. I don't care if I end up homeless or end up like Job again, but I think I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah. My observation though is most people, it's kind of a one situation and then move on to different things. I do think there's struggles and all, but so so one thing that I think I've heard you say somewhere was that you have a bit of a perfectionist streak that caused some of this to be, I don't even know if delayed is the right word, because I think timing, we talked about it earlier when we were talking about the mutant turtles, that timing is important. So sometimes these delays are divine or they're for a purpose. But talk a little bit about, I think I heard you say something about you just wanted them to be perfect, but that's interesting to me. I've got a follow up question that I want to ask.
Okay, well, that's true. I have this. Every line has to be perfect, and it has to be. Otherwise, I'll never finish it. That's why I haven't finished so many things in my life. But I can design a Ninja Turtle in a day. I can design two Ninja Turtles in one day and get it out there, get it approved. But why did this take 12 years? Well, because it's mine. I can't give it to people unless I know it's perfect. And then, I just got remarried a year ago, less than a year ago. Name's Gloria, and she's a woman of faith, and she absolutely loved the idea that I had. And, it's tough. There's two parts to why it took 12 years. Number one is that perfect issue. It has to be perfect. We tried. I had a couple of people help me, and in the very beginning, it was 6 months of just drawing, drawing, drawing. I was never happy. I was one of those guys you don't want to work for. Nope, nope, nope. Don't worry about this. Nope, it doesn't. That's not what's in my head. So I'm thinking, trying to create what was in my head, and during times of prayer, multiple times, I would see things and draw it out, but it wouldn't come together. So I was never happy. And then there was a few other moments during the 12 years that I tried it again, but I was really busy being a single dad and making money, doing other things. But when I met Gloria, she told me one thing. She goes, doesn't have to be perfect, right? But this has to be the time. So 2 or 3 miracles happened about a year ago that led us to start this. And yeah, I mean, there is no such thing as perfect, right?
It it's fascinating that you bring that up because the contrast that I heard is that when you sat down in 1989, 90, 91, 92, you would come in and just crank out, I don't know if that's the right word, but
Yeah,
just
it's the work.
crank out stuff, and some of it would stick, some of it wouldn't. And I don't want to say you didn't care. That's not, maybe not the right term, but it was almost like it was just, I don't even want to say assembly line, but you were just doing it. So that's one thing. And I'm going to let you respond to this, but there's one other thing I want to mention. The thing you mentioned about this project is that you're the owner, but I'm going to press on you for just a little while and let you agree or disagree with this. I've been very similar in some projects I have, but what the Lord has told me is that I'm not the owner of anything, but I'm a steward. And that kind of helps me rethink it. So, bridge those two together. The way you worked when you were just cranking out the work, and now that you're in a faith component, let's just say we kind of, because I think a lot of people of faith do this. They get in this thing, okay, now it's for God. But anyway, does that make sense?
Uh,
Respond to whatever you want to come.
yeah, 100%. I mean, cranking out, yeah, I remember because it wasn't mine, it was just a job, right? And I wasn't liable if something happened. So I was just, it was a lot of fun. I was young too. I was 18 to 26.
You didn't know
Got
what
it
you didn't
all,
know.
and I had the job that all of my colleagues or friends, they dreamt of, and I didn't even appreciate it. It was just work. I go in, I draw, they love it. Great. And I was like a celebrity in the office. Hey, they love it. Okay. We use a fax machine. They would fax it over and they get a call. We love it. They loved it. Years later, after all these different ventures and jobs that I've done, remember I told you I failed so many times, double digits, right? It costs a lot of money, a lot of time. And that was my MBA, right? I'm learning. And then what I realized early on was that I'm not a good CEO, man. I'm not a good leader of a business. But what I'm really good at is being the number two. I'm a great vice president, and that company succeeded like crazy. I'm a real good partner. Today, knowing that God's at the helm, and can you make me your vice president? Right? And that's how I see myself. And suddenly I get a lot of confidence because when I'm at the helm, I can never make it perfect. And I would worry too much about money and failing. And, right now we're seeking money to take this to the next level. But I have a lot of confidence and I don't feel liable for it, I guess.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. Yeah, yeah. It's good to have a Gloria. I have a
Yeah.
glory. You
Wow.
have a Gloria.
Oh yeah.
Someone that reminds you and encourages you and says, just do it. Just come on. You've talked about this enough. Just go ahead and let's go to Comic Con. Let's do this. And you recently, I want to congratulate you. You had a Kickstarter that it looks like it funded and was successful, that finished up just a little while back. I'm sure that's a drop in the bucket to the money you need, but it's probably
Yeah.
just a good little indicator. Tell for those there, I almost feel like we need to explain to some people what a fax machine is, but we're not going to do that. We just mentioned something that people are going to go, what's a fax machine? But Kickstarter, just real quick, just give me your experience and thoughts. Was that a good move? Did it work well for you and give you some?
Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform where people come up with an idea. The more people like it, they get to pledge, they get to back the project, but it's like they get to buy it before they produce it. This is a great idea for this cup. It is made of diamonds. Okay, great. I want it. And so if it meets that goal, it's a successful campaign. If it doesn't, everybody leaves, nothing happens. But I felt it was a good platform simply because we can get a lot of eyeballs in it. But to be honest, I think our audience we couldn't find our audience. Again, what I'm going to talk about, Ancientz, is an art toy, it's a designer toy. They're kind of expensive because is more comparable to Bear Bricks or Cause, Kid Robot, collectible figurines, which can be hundreds of dollars, maybe thousands. The audience coming in, they were looking for toys. And the comments we're getting was, how could you charge $300 for a toy? Doesn't make sense. So we didn't connect with our audience, but just barely enough people to get us past a goal. And we're hoping for $1 million, but hey, maybe we'll get that another way. God put us through this for a reason, and there's no harm to it.
That's another good learning. I think it's a good data point to know, okay, here's what we found out. Here's what we'll be able to accomplish with that. And I do think it's valuable. So, all right, we've danced around it. So now tell people what Ancientz is and what you have, that for those that are looking, remember some people are listening so they can't see it, but over your right shoulder, there's a collection. There's a big, I'm assuming a Goliath there, and there's a bit of a predator look to it. Look at the glowing stuff there. So talk us through it for those that might be listening.
We have two different lines of products. Ones are the minis, as you see here. This is Noah with his colors. This is Gideon. The small 3-inch figures, what I'm holding here, they're keychains, actually. You can wear them around. So there's a little fashion aspect to it, like Labubus. They are easier to make, I think more affordable price point where it can get out to the mass market. And these are, again, art toys that come out of that were designed by me, that are going to be produced for people to compete against Labubus, right? And they have their own little look and appeal. But we also have the larger line. I'll show it to you. That there is that 20-inch Goliath, which is like $1,500 made of resin. And this is David. He comes with
Oh,
this
wow.
thing. He has the verse that is most appropriate for him. He has
First Samuel 17, they're good. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So he has a little jetpack, so he has a short range flying capacity. But the whole idea behind Ancientz, the storyline, we're building the origin story, is a technology called Luminara, which lights their eyes and their hair, this predator hair, looking at the tendrils in the back. These are robots that are built that are run by spirits. The actual
Mm.
David is here fighting Goliath in today's time. There's a whole science behind it. Goliath and the evil guys were built by a professor who stole the technology from the company who were trying to bring up the spirits. And they all know that only biblical spirits are strong enough to revive, right? But the technology is supernatural biorobotics, which is what we call SI, right? Supernatural intelligence. And what Professor Ball does, he steals it and he uses AI. So it's supernatural intelligence versus AI, because AI has a lot of negative connotations today, taking over.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't know how far it's going to go if they can even control it in the next 5 or 10 years. So yeah, there's good and evil. There's AIs. Even though I use ChatGPT a lot. uh,
I do too. So you've got the basic good versus evil,
yeah.
but what you're doing is you're bringing it to a modern story with a very cool and robotic look to it. Like I said, there's sort of a, I hope that's not a bad thing if I say there's a predator look. That actually has more of a squared look on that one you're
Well,
holding in your hand.
these are the mini versions. You
Yeah.
see the mini versions here is 3 inches. The larger,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's 14 inches tall. But yeah, the Predator look, I love Predator. I grew up and everything I love drawing octopuses. And um, growing up, and then when I saw these visions 12 years ago, man, I mean, it makes them look original. And can you imagine Samson have longer hair than the rest of them later on? And then
Yeah.
the female figurines have longer hair, longer ones. You see it?
Oh, yeah.
Rahab.
Look at that with the red Rahab.
Yeah.
Those are really cool. So I can really appreciate creativity, business models, and things like that, but my mind doesn't think in terms of even collectibles or toys or anything like that. But I could appreciate it. And so the thing that kind of keeps coming to my mind is kind of what we were talking about earlier with the Ninja Turtles is the story. And I believe you've said that's still being developed. Is that correct? Are you still, I mean, there's some baseline to it, but you're still working on story, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're working on the story Bible, not
Mm,
the Bible we know, but in the industry they call it the story Bible. The
yeah,
the universe where they exist, their personality and the landscape of where the story takes place. They have to know it. They have to know the personality of each of these characters. And we happen to have a lot of characters, so it's going to take a little more time. But there are companies out there asking for it. We have a lot of interest simply because it does have Bible reference to it. This might be, we're praying and we believe to be the biggest Bible based pop franchise, perhaps. Right? It's,
sure. But here's the thing with this type stuff, and I know you would agree with this. It's got to have an appeal. I don't want to say for the general public, that may not be the right term. But like you mentioned earlier with your kids, if you gave them the traditional, I call it flannel graph, that dates me and tells how old I am. David and Goliath, wearing the loincloth, looking like, truthfully, someone from 1000 BC. That the kids would probably look at it and go, "Oh yeah, that's great. Not super cool." The stuff over your shoulder there, something that would have a cool appeal to, I hate to say just heathens, but let's just say someone who's not looking for necessarily Bible stuff, but they would go, you know what, that's kind of a cool looking thing there. Is that correct?
well, the original idea was to appeal to the believers who want something for their family that is
Right.
Spider-Man or
Hmm.
Batman but the more we started building these out, we wanted
Hmm.
to appeal to everyone. And the idea is, let's say it becomes super popular, or we have a built-in audience, we feel, the believers, the people who want this for their kids. So we can be successful just on them, right? But then if it starts to grow that way, it will catch the eyes of other kids. They don't want to be left out. Like, look, they don't know anything about the Bible, but they want it. And
Hmm.
that's the goal. To get a character of David, they'll be curious, what is this? Who is this guy? And there are verses you can read about them. So imagine if it does go global, and that's my mission, to get people to be looking in the Bible to learn about these characters and see who they are. And I want to, how many characters can I make? That sounded well. I think I can make thousands of them in the long run. But that I'm having fun with it. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I'm trying to seek, go, and create with all this.
I love that. Thanks for working that in. It sounds as if I'm actually working on a similar project right now, kind of creating this alternate universe that has a foundation in scripture. I've been doing a lot of writing and studying in the first century around the time all the New Testament was written. And I'm actually working on some fiction that revolves around, mine's probably a little bit closer to actual scripture. Yours is, you are taking a separate universe, which I think has massive appeal. Kind of my close to my last question here. This kind of stuff's really hard. It's not easy. So to talk candidly about how hard it is, and then with that go into almost either a prayer or a request of what is it that you really need right now at this stage of this project. So how hard is it?
Yeah, I mean, the hardest part of anything is trying to gain popularity, right? And when you first do something, we all have our goals. We set milestones. Okay, like Comic Con, we're supposed to do this. Kickstarter, we're supposed to do this. Almost nothing comes according to plan. Right? You've done businesses, so you know. So we have a year one goal, year two goal. I think it's very rare that at least small companies or startups like us, they hit those milestones on the right mark. But what I'm learning is a lot of times we spend too much money and time on something. It doesn't end up what we were anticipating. We're hoping to get all the Christian communities to come and support us, but it didn't come out that way. Only a few did. maybe they don't find it interesting or whatever. But like Kickstarter, we haven't found our audience yet. The great part is what happens when you're going for those milestones, those markers. Other things happen that we didn't expect. The Kickstarter didn't hit the real goals that we were hoping to make. But because we had that deadline, we got so much done, a lot more than we would have if we didn't do Kickstarter. So we're just getting surprised at every turn. And it is really hard not hitting those milestones or the goals or the money that you're trying to get to as a business. But the exciting part is what happens because of that. And our goal was not to, we wouldn't think any toy companies would be interested in talking to us until we gain fame or popularity for a faith-based toy to come into something, especially in this political and America the way it is today, right? They're trying to take God out of out of everything. So we know the challenges. We know that that's why you don't see biblical toys out there being popular. But something that's happening is just the economy, right? Maybe they're looking for something new, something exciting, and we're already talking to toy companies. Like these are things. If we did it to Kickstarter, to me, we did make our goal, but I consider our failure because I didn't make our millions, right? But you're kind of depressed. Oh man, we did it. We have all this available. We did everything to market ourselves, get out there, and we did catch the eyes of multiple toy companies, and they're already interested in it. And because of what the world's going through, they're looking for new stuff. And we go to Comic-Con and a lot of people would complain that, hey, I've been coming to Comic-Con for 20 years. How many more Supermans can we see? How many more Batmans? I'm glad you're doing something new. So they're looking for something new, something exciting. But most people are afraid to do something like this because number one, they can't afford it. We couldn't afford it, but we somehow found a way to do it. You have to have that faith and you have to take the risk. I was never afraid of becoming homeless. I don't care about it. I just put it all out. I'm a gambler by heart. I'll do it. And if I end up in the streets or I end up with zero, hey, that's a great time to rebuild, right? So, I mean, I guess that's the mind you got to have. You're also an entrepreneur. You got to have that mindset, not being afraid to fail, to do something like this.
Yeah, that's so good. And you're so right. It's like I get confused at times every time a new Superman movie comes out because I'm going, haven't they told this story before? I mean, are they? I had a friend, Lee York. I don't know if he listens in here, but I knew him in the early 80s. And he was sort of, he was optimistic, but he had a pessimistic side to him. And one of the things he told me, and I still remember it to this day, he said, all the ideas have been come up with. People have come up with all the shows and TV, and every time I see something recycled, I think of what Lee said. And then I talk to Howard and I look over your right shoulder and I go, I haven't ever seen anything like that. And that excites me and I'm pulling for it. And I want tell people as we finish up here, because you've got a website, you've got some things they could go check out. Just tell people where they can go to, air quotes here, support or just keep up with what's going on and maybe be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple. Ancientz.com with a Z. Ancientz. Everything sounds cooler with a Z, right? Ancientz with the
I've
Z.
got it pulled up here.
Yeah.
It's a cool site.
Ancientz.
We'll include links and everything to that. And I think I've joined there's an email list there, I think, so people can stay up to date. And I'm sure you'll let people know what's going on and all that,
Yeah.
correct?
We have our Instagram, Facebook, and everything, but Instagram is our main point of showing people what's happening. We're building a 6.5-foot David character right now for Designer Con, which is next week. We're not even ready for it. I got to paint it and everything. There's a lot of work which was behind what we're trying to do. I mean, we don't know where we're going, but we're going, right? And we're seeking.
That's awesome. So Howard Quigley Chang, man, pulling for you and Ancientz with a Z.com. If you've been intrigued by this, definitely go to the website, check out all that he's doing and connect. I'm sure that if you're listening in and you've got a boatload of money sitting in some account and you want to invest it in something, I'm sure that Howard would love to talk to you. Am I correct, Howard?
Well, sir, if Scotty Scheffler or anybody knows him is listening, I'd like to make a custom Scotty Scheffler Warrior version of it with tailor-made Nike and your clubs, and I want to present it to you. Tim Tebow, if you're listening, I want to do it for you. So,
That'd be awesome. So anyway, check this out. I love obviously the Seek Go Create tie-in that Howard brought up, but I just love when I see creative things, especially that are inspired. We'll call them divinely inspired things. So thanks for listening in here at Seek Go Create. We've got new episodes every Monday. I am hopeful that you watched this episode on YouTube because it had visuals. If you've gotten to the end and you're on the audio, you may want to jump over to YouTube and check out some of the things that are behind Howard as he's been going through this. So anyway, thanks for joining us here on Seek Go Create. We will see you next week. Hey, before you go, I want to leave you with a challenge. If you're enjoying the conversations here on Seek Go Create, I think you'll love the deeper journey my novel Coach, A Story of Success Redefined, takes you on. It's a story that's moved many of my readers to rethink what success actually means and how to live a life aligned with faith, purpose, and peace. Pick up your copy today wherever you buy books or at timwinders.com and begin the journey for yourself. Thanks again for listening. And as always, keep seeking, keep going, and keep creating.